Each time the alien princess kissed him, time reset to zero. The universe never remembered, but he did, and every time her lips met his, the stars blinked back to their origin, and he alone was left with the ache of loving her 1,000 times over. He first met the alien princess in the ruins of a forgotten observatory, orbiting the remnants of a sun long since collapsed into a neutron grave, an ancient station caught in the event horizon of both gravity and time, and it was there, among broken glass and shattered gravity plates, that she stepped through the quantum veil and looked at him like she already knew how he died. She didn't speak at first. She simply placed her hand to the side of his helmet, even though she didn't need to breathe. She didn't need anything. Her species had long evolved past mortality, but she wore pain like a second skin, sadness, stitched into every angle of her luminous face, and when her lips met his visor, the station cracked, lights burst into white flame, and the entire universe, the whole damn timeline, snapped back like a slingshot. When he awoke again, gasping, eyes wide, he was back in his room aboard the diplomatic transport Viridian Reach, for days before he'd even been sent to the Dead Star Station, but with her name still whispering through his mind, Kyrith. At first, he thought it a dream, but the dream returned, and it wasn't just that time reset when she kissed him. It was that every kiss brought back the weight of every life they had lived before, as though fate had tethered them to a love so powerful it broke causality itself. Chapter by chapter, loop by loop, he tried to resist it, tried to change the sequence, to avoid the kiss, to deny the inevitability, but he always failed, because every loop began with him seeking her, every mission rerouted toward that sunless star, every ship inexplicably glitching toward the same dead orbit. And always, she waited, sometimes clothed in royal armor, sometimes dressed like a lost nomad, but always with the same eyes that had cried through centuries. He learned to read her silences, learned that the anomaly wasn't just her, it was them. Together, they were the paradox alone that could exist in time. But the moment affection passed between them, reality collapsed. Once, after the 14th reset, he tried to report the anomaly to his command. He sent encrypted logs, recordings of fragments, begged them to investigate the anomaly, but each time, he woke back in his cabin, for days earlier, records wiped, voice trembling from memory no one else could share. At first, it drove him to madness, writing on his arms, marking the walls of his quarters with lines scratched into steel, desperate to prove to himself that it wasn't insanity. But she always found him, no matter the divergence. Even when he tried to run missions light years away, something always brought her back into his path, and with every cycle, he noticed subtle differences, her expressions changing, her words evolving, memories carrying through time just like his. She remembered, not everything, not fully, but enough to start recognizing him before the kiss. That's when the fear set in, because the loops were not perfect. With every reset, the universe seemed more brittle, the stars were dimming faster, nebulae aging in strange ways. He realized, with a chill deeper than vacuum, that the timeline wasn't infinitely resilient. The resets were breaking it. They were killing time itself. But how do you stop something when the moment you act on your knowledge, you get pulled back again? How do you convince the woman you love not to love you back, when the only place her soul finds peace is in your arms? And that moment always came the kiss, sometimes quick and accidental, sometimes desperate and aching. And once, during the 31st reset, it was she who initiated it while weeping, her voice whispering, "I remember now. I remember all of them." And then, reset. One day, in a version of the loop where he avoided the mission entirely, stayed grounded in the capital of New Sol, he thought he'd finally broken free. No ship rerouted, no mission command override. He thought he was safe until he saw her across a crowded plaza of the alien embassy, standing in shadow, dressed not as a princess, but a courier, her eyes wide with unshed tears, and he knew instantly she had escaped the loop too. The anomaly was spreading. They no longer needed to be in orbit for the collapse to happen. They only needed each other. That night, as they sat across from one another in an abandoned train tunnel below the city, she confessed it. Her people had known. They'd warned her. Her genome was quantum entangled with something they didn't understand, an experimental fusion of time-sensitive DNA from an ancient pre-singularity race. It was supposed to grant her insight across dimensions. Instead, it created her curse, and he, somehow, had become her anchor. The universe was trying to fix the paradox by resetting them. But the resets weren't enough anymore. I can feel the ends fraying, she said. The edges of reality are too tired to stitch themselves again. He held her hands then and made a vow. Then we'll break the loop, not by force, but by choice. She nodded, though her hands trembled. We have to resist it. No more kisses, he whispered. No matter what. It worked. For 4 entire loops, they resisted. They met. They wept. They held each other, but no kiss. Time flowed. The stars held. For the first time, he saw the days stretch longer, but fate is cruel. On the 5th cycle, they were separated. He was arrested by patrol for trespassing into restricted airspace trying to find her. She was intercepted by her royal escort and taken back beyond reach. Weeks passed. He nearly forgot what her voice sounded like, and then the war began. A 1,000-year treaty broke between her empire and the unified human colonies. He knew it wasn't coincidence. The anomaly needed a convergence point of reason to return them to one another, and it gave them war. Missiles split moons. Fleets disappeared into black holes torn open by unstable drives. The galaxy burned. In the chaos, she returned. On the battlefield, limping through smoke and flame, she found him bleeding beneath the ruins of a shattered cruiser. I won't let you die, she sobbed, even if it dooms everything. And this time, he didn't stop her. Her lips brushed his, tender as memory. And then light, collapse, silence, reset. The laboratory was silent except for the hum of containment fields and the muffled ticking of the chronolocks embedded deep within the station's temporal core. And as the human stood staring into the reflection of his own exhausted eyes against the curved glass of the observation chamber, he knew that nothing would ever be normal again, not after the kiss, not after the tears she shed that shattered the illusion of time as linear, not after reality fractured around her lips pressed against his under that blood-hued moon, collapsing futures and rewriting past like a hand scrawling furiously over yesterday's script. And yet he loved her still, perhaps even more now, because in the chaos that followed, when space-time itself bent to the curvature of her emotion and the gravity of her presence, he realized she was the only constant that mattered, even if every kiss risked unraveling the stars themselves. They had tried to separate them, of course. Once the Council discovered the anomaly wasn't an environmental disturbance or tech malfunction, but an intimate reaction between his genetic makeup and the alien princess's quantum-bonded physiology, and the station's artificial intelligence, a dispassionate thing built to monitor anomalies and prevent cataclysm, had nearly jettisoned him into the void until she screamed, shaking the moonlit chamber so violently that for technicians were trapped in a recursive time loop for 4 to 7 subjective years before the AI could recompile their chronal data. Now quarantined in the Aurora Array's forgotten orbital wing, the human and the alien princess lived in a temporal isolation chamber designed by mad physicists and desperate diplomats, the walls constantly shifting between molecular arrangements to keep up with the unpredictable flux her emotions caused. And the only anchor to sanity he found was the way she looked at him, not like he was dangerous or broken, but like he was hers. And he couldn't bear the thought that every time she kissed him, every time her trembling lips brushed his, it might not only reset time, but erase the very moments they cherished. And perhaps that was the cruelest irony of all, that love had to be tempered with restraint. Desire choked back like fire caught in a glass jar, glowing but unable to breathe. And so they tested, cautiously, scientifically, one brush of fingers, no disruption. One whispered confession, minor static ripple. But the moment her lips touched the corner of his jaw, the entire sector's clocks blinked 0 o'clock, and the star systems nearby reported sightings of planets blinking in and out of phase, oceans appearing where deserts had been, children forgetting their parents, and civilizations repeating weeks they thought they had lived already. And each time, the princess cried, not because of the destruction, but because with every kiss came the loss of something real, a moment that could never be properly recorded, remembered, or shared, a laughter lost to a loop, a confession devoured by causality's hunger. And he hated seeing her weep, even as he wanted to hold her face in his palms and let her know it was worth it, worth the risk, worth the burn, worth the fact that reality bent and broke around them, because nothing mattered more than the way she trusted him, the way she said his name in her native tongue, a melodic sound like liquid stars. And yet he resisted because each moment of surrender stole something, and they were already running out of time, not metaphorically, but literally. As the quantum tide surged closer, The galactic anomaly predicted to reach their location in 9 standard days, and no amount of council influence or military evacuation protocol could remove the fact that the ripple would consume this portion of space, unless the anomaly of their anomaly was resolved or neutralized. And though the council's cloaked envoy visited them with poisoned words and false promises, offering the princess clemency and genetic stasis if she allowed herself to be sealed in quantum ice for eternity, she refused, because she knew they'd erase her mind first, destroy the part of her that loved, that fell, that kissed. And the human had held her as she shook with fury afterward, her body vibrating slightly with temporal echo as she swore that no council, no empire, no force would separate them again, not even time itself. And they made a plan, reckless perhaps, mad even, but born of desperation and devotion, to escape containment, not to flee, but to reach the last functioning Mirrorcore on the old planet beneath, an ancient device that could isolate and reflect temporal distortion, and perhaps, just perhaps, contain a moment, a kiss, without consequence, sealing it in a quantum chamber where they could love without breaking the cosmos. And though the risks were astronomical, and though the human feared what the princess might lose in the process, she only smiled and said softly, "If it works, we'll finally have a moment no one can take away." And that night, under artificial starlight inside a room that sang in overlapping seconds, he kissed her, not fully, not yet, but a near kiss, a promise, while alarms silently blinked red, and the countdown to their departure began. The Mirrorcore was older than language, older than the council, older even than the stars that birthed the civilizations now warring over whose laws mattered more, etched into the crust of a forgotten planet no longer charted by the navigational arrays, where dust fell in gravityless silence and the sky shimmered with ancient auroras trapped between dimensions. And as the human and the alien princess stood before it, their hands intertwined, they felt the weight of every fractured moment behind them pressing into this one final chance, because behind them the station had collapsed into recursive time waves, the last of the loyal crew caught in endless loops or flung into temporal drift. And in front of them was a machine no one fully understood, only that it had once held a supernova in stillness, capturing its last breath like a frozen memory. And if it could do that, maybe it could hold their love too, unbroken, unlooped, unreset. The human's heart beat fast, but not from fear. He had made peace with dying 1,000 lives ago, when her lips first broke the clock, and now he lived only for this, for the hope that maybe this one kiss wouldn't reset the universe, wouldn't collapse timelines into ashes, wouldn't rewrite the days they'd fought so hard to keep real. And the alien princess, radiant even in her exhaustion, looked up at him with a kind of determined sorrow that only someone who had lost whole galaxies with a single tear could wear. And she nodded, a wordless yes, because words had failed them too many times, twisted by fractured time and overwritten by cause undone. So she said nothing, and stepped into the central prism of the Mirrorcore, the field shimmering around her like glass made from starlight. And he followed, ignoring the warnings screaming in his neural implants, ignoring the distant voices of the council shouting across quantum frequencies, "Do not proceed. Anomaly breach is unacceptable. Cease interaction now." But he had ceased listening to them long ago, because the anomaly wasn't her. The anomaly was love that dared exist despite science, despite power, despite time itself. And as he stood opposite her, both encased in the Mirrorcore's suspended singularity, he reached forward and touched her cheek, and for the first time, the air did not tremble, the seconds did not rewind, the stars did not blink, and with a breathless whisper he said, "I don't care what happens. I just want one real moment with you." And she smiled gently, like the first sunrise on a world that never knew warmth, and kissed him, truly kissed him, not in fear, not in desperation, but in complete surrender. And for a heartbeat, nothing happened. No reset, no collapse. The Mirrorcore pulsed faintly. The anomaly data spiked and then leveled. The sky outside held still. Time held still. Around them, the containment prism captured the moment like a butterfly trapped in amber, folding the instant into its crystalline matrix, suspending their kiss in a pocket of reality untouchable by past or future. And outside, time resumed, but they were no longer there. In the aftermath, the council declared the anomaly neutralized, the station lost, the risk ended. But on the old planet's surface, the Mirrorcore remained, its central chamber now a relic no one dared tamper with, because inside it, forever frozen in that perfect equilibrium, stood the human and the alien princess. Lips pressed together, eyes closed, time unmoving, untouched. A moment sealed against the entropy of the cosmos, and over centuries, travelers who came upon the Mirrorcore swore they felt warmth radiate from within. A kind of love that didn't decay, didn't die, didn't bend to politics or probability. And some said if you listened closely, you could hear a heartbeat in sync with another, and in the end, though they vanished from time's flow, they won, not because they escaped the laws of physics, but because they carved a moment, so perfect it could not be undone, and in that single moment, they were free.